The wheels touched down with a shudder. I didn't flinch. The hum of the cabin, the scrape of luggage overhead, the cheerful chatter of passengers gathering their things, it all moved around me like static. I stayed seated, phone in hand, the folded flag still tucked in my carry-on beneath the seat. Liam would have hated the turbulence but loved the precision of the landing. He always said flying was just controlled falling. I never found that comforting. The message was already typed. Simple. No punctuation, no exclamation points. Just flight lands at 4 p.m. Can someone pick me up? I sent it to the family group chat, the one with the heart emoji next to the name, the one they used for birthday reminders and last-minute potlucks. I didn't expect fanfare. I didn't expect a parade. I just didn't want to stand at curbside, alone, after burying the man I loved in a country I'd never meant to visit. The reply came fast. Kara, we're busy. Try Uber. 2 minutes later, my mother chimed in. Mom, you should have planned better. No, how was the funeral? No, we're so sorry. No, we're proud of him. Just that cold, clean, clipped. I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered. For a second, I thought about calling, not to argue, just to ask. Again. Maybe softer this time. But then I remembered the silence at the gravesite, the empty folding chairs on either side of me. I typed back, no worries. I powered down my phone, slid it into my coat pocket, and stood as the line began to shuffle forward. I didn't need a ride anymore. I didn't need anything from them at all. By the time I stepped through the terminal and out into the crisp, late afternoon light, I already knew who'd be waiting. Germany was cold in a way I hadn't expected. Not the kind that bites through skin, but the kind that settles deep, like grief. The air outside the chapel didn't move. Everything was still. Uniforms formed clean rows, boots planted into gravel, faces unreadable, except mine. They asked if I wanted music. I said no. Liam didn't like performances. They asked if I wanted words. I said I couldn't carry them. So they gave me silence, and precision, and 21 sharp cracks through the sky. The flag was folded so tightly, it felt like stone in my hands. I didn't cry when they handed it to me. I had already done that on the flight, in the sterile hotel room, in the bathroom between meetings with the liaison officer. What broke me wasn't the ceremony. It was the empty chairs beside me, reserved rows with names printed neatly, untouched. One for Kara, one for my mother, one for whoever else had once called Liam family. When the last salute was given and the last rifle lowered, a Marine stepped closer, young, maybe mid-20s, face steady. She didn't smile, she didn't linger, just leaned in close enough for her voice to reach only me. We'll be there when you land. I nodded, though I didn't fully understand what she meant. Then again, maybe she didn't mean for me to. Later that evening, back at the base guest quarters, I opened my bag to pack the flag. Nestled beside it was a small card. No name, just an address and a contact number. The last line said, "Escort arranged upon arrival. You won't be alone." And I wasn't. Because when I stepped out of the terminal, coat zipped high, flag gripped tight, I saw them. The sliding doors parted, and the noise hit me like a wave honking horns, luggage wheels scraping pavement, families shouting greetings through rolled-down windows. I walked past it all. No one called my name. No one waved from across the pickup lane, and I didn't slow down to look. I kept walking until I saw it. A black SUV idled by the curb, spotless and still. The front passenger stepped out first, a tall woman in full dress blues, heels clicking sharply against concrete. Then came a second, older, with silver hair neatly pinned, her posture straight as a rail. The third, a man, younger than both, already moving toward me with calm purpose. No one spoke. He reached for my suitcase. I didn't resist. I just let go. The woman opened the rear door and nodded once. I stepped forward, flag tight against my chest. It felt heavier now, Not just with memory, but with meaning. Inside, the vehicle was warm, silent. I settled into the leather seat without adjusting anything. The older woman closed the door behind me, then circled around and took the driver's seat. We pulled away smoothly, like they had done this before, because maybe they had, through the window. I watched as other passengers embraced arms tangled, faces buried in coats, tears caught mid-laugh. A man lifted a toddler into the air. A college girl clung to her father's neck. I faced forward. No one asked me how the flight was. No one asked what had happened overseas. They didn't need to. Their presence said enough. The absence of small talk wasn't awkward. It was deliberate. It made space for something heavier. At the first red light, the Marine in the passenger seat turned just slightly toward me. Not to speak. Just enough for me to feel the air shift. I tightened my grip on the flag and closed my eyes. The kind of stillness that settled over me wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was the closest I'd been in days. I didn't check my phone. I didn't reopen the group chat. I stared straight ahead as the city blurred past, and waited for the rest of the world to catch up. That night, I didn't turn on the TV. I sat by the window of the hotel room, still in the same clothes, the flag folded neatly on the armchair beside me. The city moved below cars snaking through intersections, headlights gliding over damp pavement. I didn't eat dinner. I didn't answer any messages. I didn't send any. I didn't need to. At exactly 9 p.m., the screen in millions of living rooms flickered to a still shot me, stepping into a black SUV, 3 Marines in full dress behind me. The news anchor's voice came steady and low, the kind they use when something tragic but dignified has occurred. Tonight, a widow returned home from her husband's military funeral overseas. She arrived to no family at the gate, but she was not alone. They showed the clip in full, me walking through the terminal, past families reuniting, through the sliding doors, into the care of uniformed strangers. The camera held long enough for the folded flag to be visible in my arms. Then, as I stepped into the SUV, the Marines took position behind me, forming a silent wall. The screen shifted to a single page, the note I'd written hours earlier and handed to the station's producer without fanfare. If you find yourself alone at the edge of grief, don't look back. Look for who steps forward. M.L. They didn't say my full name, but they didn't have to. I could imagine the exact moment the story aired in my mother's living room. I knew which cabinet held her wine glass, and I could almost hear it clink against the counter. I knew my sister's condo would be dark, but for the flicker of the TV, I knew what it sounded like when silverware hit ceramic, when silence filled a room after the story you buried found a way to speak. None of them had texted, not yet, but the silence that had once protected them was no longer theirs. It belonged to everyone now. The anchor signed off. The image faded, and somewhere behind the broadcast, behind the formality and uniforms and quotes, the story had begun to shift, not because I had demanded it, but because truth doesn't need permission to be heard. The text came in just before midnight. Kara, was that you on the news? Not, I'm sorry, not, I didn't know. Not even, are you okay? Just a 6-word question, brittle and hollow, as if the doubt might spare her some guilt. I didn't answer. I locked the screen and set the phone face down on the bedside table. A few minutes later, I opened the group chat out of habit. I hadn't planned to, but there it was, still pinned at the top, still named family, though the word felt unfamiliar now. The last message was still mine. No worries. I scrolled up. Kara's reply. My mother's critique. Nothing more. Then I noticed the updated group photo. Someone had changed it. A new image filled the corner, me and Kara, maybe 7 or 8 years old, standing side by side at some 4th of July parade, holding tiny flags. The caption underneath was her doing. I could tell, family first, always. I stared at it longer than I meant to. Not because it touched me, but because the disconnect was so complete it felt almost surreal. They hadn't shown up at the airport. They hadn't called after the funeral. They hadn't even texted until the city already had my name in headlines. Below the image, someone had commented, "You didn't even pick her up." It had 10 likes, then 15, then more. The replies were piling in. Strangers. I watched the number climb. Unread. Then I pressed and held the chat until the menu popped up. I selected delete, confirmed it. Let it vanish. I didn't feel lighter, but I did feel clean. I moved back to the window. Same city, same lights. The flag still rested on the armchair, still folded into that impossible triangle. I wondered if they knew what it weighed. The email came in at 12:37 a.m. Subject follow-up from Channel 8. Body Men's Loxley. Thank you for your quiet strength earlier this evening. We've had an overwhelming response to your segment. If you'd be open to a follow-up, we'd love to hear more from you. No pressure. Just let us know. No pressure. They didn't know how strange that phrase sounded after everything. I stared at the blinking cursor in the reply box, then closed the laptop. It wasn't a question of attention. It was a question of ownership. The world had seen the edges, but the center, what it had cost to get through the airport with my chin up, what it had felt like to stand beside an empty chair at Liam's gravesite, none of that had been told. And maybe it was time. The interview wasn't live. That helped. They asked if I wanted makeup. I declined. Did I want to prep my answers? No. Did I want to bring someone with me I already had? Liam was in every word I planned to speak. The studio wasn't what I expected: small, quiet, with soft lighting and nothing staged. Just a single chair, a table, 2 microphones, and a woman with gentle eyes who introduced herself only as Harper. "We can stop any time," she said. "You don't have to say anything you don't want to." I nodded. They did a mic check, adjusted the camera once, and then we started. Harper leaned forward, not as a journalist, but as someone who had read the story and knew there was more beneath it. Her first question came softly. "What happened when you landed?" I took a breath. Not deep, just enough. "I buried my husband with honor," I said, and I came home to silence. She didn't interrupt, didn't fill the quiet. She let the sentence sit. I told her about the folded flag, the empty chairs at the funeral, the black SUV waiting outside the terminal. I told her about the Marines, how they stood behind me, not out of duty, but respect. She asked about the group chat. I shook my head. "I won't name them. This isn't about shame. It's about absence and presence." I said it calmly, not with practiced eloquence, but with the steadiness that comes when a wound has been felt long enough to scar. "People think grief is loud," I said, "but it's not. Grief is what you hear when everyone you counted on says nothing." The segment lasted 12 minutes. No music, no dramatic edits. Just my voice, unembellished. Just the truth, left to stand on its own. When we finished, Harper reached across the table and squeezed my hand. She didn't say anything. I was grateful for that. Later that evening, the piece aired. Prime time. Right between a local weather update and some story about a mayor's speech. And somewhere between those two things, I watched my own life unfold on screen quietly, clearly, without apology. The phone started buzzing less than an hour later, but I didn't check it. Instead, I opened a blank notebook and wrote 5 words at the top of a clean page: "The Welcome Project Phase 1, the morning after the interview aired. I woke to more emails than I'd ever seen in my inbox. Some were short thank you for saying what I couldn't. Others were long, winding letters from widows, military spouses, and even civilians who'd never worn a uniform but knew what silence felt like. A veteran from Arizona wrote, "I remember coming home to an empty terminal. You put words to something I buried years ago. There were flowers, too. I never said where to send them, but they arrived anyway, white lilies, navy ribbon. A folded note that read simply, 'For the courage we all needed.' I didn't know what to do with it all at first. I wasn't trying to start something. I was just trying to finish the conversation my family refused to have, but the messages kept coming. And then someone asked, "Do you know if there's a way to meet people like you at the airport? Just anyone to show up." That was the moment it shifted. I opened that notebook again, wrote down one sentence. No one should come home to silence. Within 48 hours, I had a name, the Welcome Project. By the end of the week, I had a website, basic but functional. A friend of Liam's helped build it. Volunteers began signing up from different cities. A woman from Charlotte offered to organize the first pickup team. Someone from Chicago sent a donation for signage. Day 10, JFK. The first pickup. A woman named Anna stood just outside arrivals, holding a hand-lettered sign. "We've got you." The photo made its way online before I even saw it. A military spouse, just home from burying her partner in Kuwait, stood weeping in Anna's arms. They hadn't met before. It didn't matter. That night, Anna sent me a message. She said it was the first time since the funeral someone looked her in the eyes and said her name. I put my phone down and wrote thank you notes until my wrist hurt. Then I opened a new page and circled a city. Next stop, Atlanta. The vigil was held at the city park, beneath the wide elms, just before sunset. No stage, no speeches, just rows of folding chairs, paper lanterns, and candles handed out at the gate. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I stood near the back, hood drawn, hands tucked deep into my coat. Beside me, a woman I didn't know clutched a candle with both hands and whispered a name I couldn't hear. Near the front, a girl stepped forward to sing. She couldn't have been older than 16. Her voice cracked on the third line, but she didn't stop. "I'll carry you home," she sang, breath trembling, and every note landed like it had somewhere to go. People around me started crying. Not loud sobs, just quiet tears that slid down cheeks like they'd been waiting. I didn't cry, but my throat ached with the weight of what I wouldn't release. Then I saw them, across the crowd, near the edge of the trees. Kara stood still, arms folded, shoulders stiff, and beside her, our mother, wearing black, hair pinned back, the same solemn expression she wore at every church function growing up. They weren't on the program. They hadn't donated. They hadn't helped light a single candle. They just watched. They didn't move closer. They didn't wave. And I didn't either. Someone in front of me recognized my name and clapped a hand on my shoulder. A ripple of applause followed, small at first, then stronger. I stood there and let it pass through me. Not for attention, just for truth. Because in that moment, surrounded by strangers, I felt more seen than I ever had at a family dinner. And somewhere behind the line of light, they saw it too. The text came the next morning. I was sitting on the floor, surrounded by brown boxes and rolls of tape, sorting shampoo bottles from granola bars. The apartment smelled like cardboard and lavender. Kara. Didn't think it'd matter this much. I didn't know how to help. I read it 3 times, not because I didn't understand it, but because I knew exactly what it was. A sentence that reached out, but stopped short of anything real. "No, I'm sorry. No, I should have been there." Just an offering of confusion. Like that might somehow soften the shape of what she didn't do. I set the phone down and stared at the open care kit beside me. Inside, a handwritten card, a travel blanket, chapstick, tissues, instant coffee, and a small print that read, "You are not alone." I picked the phone back up, typed, "You left me when I needed you," deleted it, typed, "I hope you never feel what I felt," deleted that too. Then I sat still for a moment. The kind of still that doesn't ache anymore, just lingers. Finally. I wrote, "You made your choice." So did I. Sent. I didn't wait for a reply. I knew there wouldn't be one. Or, if there was, it would come too late and say too little. And I didn't need it anymore. I sealed the box, stacked it by the door, and reached for another. Because some things don't get fixed with words. They get transformed with action, with names you don't know yet. with hands that reach without asking why you're broken. And that day, surrounded by care kits and shipping labels, I wasn't waiting to be healed. I was already building what came after. The article came out in early spring. I didn't know it was going to be front page until I saw it through the window of the corner newsstand, my photo printed large above the fold. Head high, hand resting on the shoulder of a young woman holding a folded flag. Her eyes were red. Her smile was fragile. The headline read, "From Grief to Ground Crew. How One Widow Changed Coming Home." I bought 3 copies. Not out of pride, just to remember where it began. A week later, I was invited to speak at a local memorial for military families. I almost declined, but something in me knew it was time. They handed me the microphone. I didn't bring notes. I came home alone. I said, but I didn't stay that way. I didn't talk about my sister. I didn't talk about my mother. I talked about the weight of absence and what it feels like when strangers become structure when grief is held by hands you've never touched before. There was no applause when I finished, just a stillness that felt like respect. Afterward, I drove straight to the airport. No one asked me to. It just felt right. The 6:45 arrival from Dallas had one name on our list, a woman whose husband had died in a training accident 6 weeks earlier. I stood by the gate with a sign that said her name and 4 words beneath it, "We've got you now." And when she came around to the corner, eyes scanning, shoulders tight, I smiled. Because this time, I wasn't waiting for anyone to show up for me. I was already there.